Let's move on to big topic, big country, China. You spent 10 days there over the past summer. What was your experience? What did you see? What made an impression? What did you do?
I'd been about 6 times before, so this is like my 7th trip. One thing that was different, my daughter is an Asian studies major, as you were.
Yeah.
And she spent the summer in Hong Kong. So we picked her up and then we toured 6 cities in 10 days. And my objective with this trip, in the past trips, it was mostly just to meet with entrepreneurs and founders and mutual sharing of information, that kind of thing. This time I was more interested in just kind of being eyes wide open and learning. And so we took 2 of the high-speed trains, just as an experience set. I got a tour of the Xiaomi factory with their new car, the SU7, and was trying to get a feel for what's kind of most recent there. And we, went to Shenzhen, overnight city, which has gone from, I think, less than 100,000 people in 1980 to 20 million people, just to see the scale and scope of the whole thing. There's a lot of rhetoric in the U.S. about what is or isn't happening in China. And I just wanted to have a better feel for it. And we're making policy decisions that are going to impact, the global footprint, and God forbid, end up in a World War III kind of situation. So anyway, I just wanted a better understanding. I was aided by the fact that Dan Wong shared his book Breakneck with me right before I left. And I read it while I was there, which was interesting. And then it came out, and of course, it ended up on the bestseller list. But I think China's misperceived in a lot of ways.
What are some of those misperceptions?
The biggest one is that people who have a rudimentary understanding of what is happening there use this word communism to infer a lot of other things. And one of the things that's inferred by communism is top-down state-run system. And they think of Russia, and they assume, well, that'll always lead to bad capital allocation, no innovation, because they have this picture in their mind of these brick buildings, like with snow all around them and not much happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality there is just far, far different from that. I think Dan Wong did a great job of explaining how the country puts out this 5-year plan, but then the provinces, they're a lot bigger than a U.S. state, but they're the equivalent, like it's how the country's segmented. They compete with each other. And the effective mayor of the province, if he does well, has a chance to move up in the system, which is not a reality in the U.S. system. But what that leads to is just a massive amount of competition.
What are the metrics by which they're being judged? Do you have any idea on a province level? Is it some equivalent of GDP? It's not the right term, but
I'm guessing probably.
Yeah.
Like we could go talk to AI and get a better answer than I have right now.
Yeah.
But I would think that's part of it. Prosperity, employment,
mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. By the way, this provincial competition has also led to overbuild of buildings. Like it's not always positive,
mm-hmm.
Bridges that aren't used.
Ghost cities,
yes. But you end up with hyper competition. So I think the thing that a lot of people in Silicon Valley love about capitalism is this notion of the invisible hand and competition that leads to innovation and best practice, and the winners rise up and they're better for it. That is happening there. And if you read about the solar industry or the EV industry or now the robotics industry, they have hundreds of different companies competing in these fields. And it's brutal competition. And as a result of that, they're ending up with very innovative companies, which, once again, I think people wouldn't prescribe to being possible in a communist, world, and remarkable execution from an industrial standpoint. So the price points of the products that will be sold around the globe are well below anything that could be done in the U.S.
How do you go about getting a tour of a Xiaomi factory? I would think that they would be very closed about that. What's in it for them, and how do they?
I don't know if you saw this going around the internet yesterday, but they shipped a car to this YouTuber.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Which
Absolutely.
is brilliant. And he did like a 15. That's the SU7. That's the factory I went to. As I mentioned, I'd been there before. So I met Lei Jun, who's the founder of Xiaomi, in 2005 when he was chairman of Joyo, which was a e-commerce company that Amazon bought. So he's been around a while.
Yeah.
He has evolved into the best thing I could say is like he's the Steve Jobs of China right now.
Mm-hmm.
When he quit doing Joyo and he had this other company as well, he declared 10 years ago he was going to build a smartphone just out of the blue. I'm going to build a smartphone. He didn't have any smartphone experience, but Xiaomi is now the third largest manufacturer of handsets in the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, at about the exact same time Apple hinted they were interested in building a car, he said, I'm going to build a car.
Well, not only did he say, I'm going to build a car, but that was a response to sanctions, right? It was an emergency. As I listened to I listened to the translation of, even though my Chinese is decent, but it's not as good as it once was, I think it was 2024.
That's it.
Company-wide address where he talked about the sanctions coming in, saying, what if we couldn't make phones? What would we do?
That talk is unbelievable, and it's translated on YouTube. And I would encourage people to watch from about minute 30 to about an hour 15, which is where he talks about his process for designing the car. I don't know if you saw that part.
Yeah, I did.
But it's crazy. He says he put a note on any car in his parking lot that he had never drove, and he would ask each employee to give him 3 positives, 3 negatives, and loan him the car. He said he drove 200 of his employees' cars. When you hear that kind of stuff, you're like, wow. I wonder if anyone at Apple did that. I mean, it's just such a kind of bottom up, just ground truth way to start the process. But even still, even if you did that, like a bunch of people could do that, how do you have the wherewithal to build a factory? He'd never built a factory before. I've been in other car factories here in the U.S. It was phenomenal. Anyway, back to your question, why I could get in is I knew Lei Jun from way back.
What does the process look like? Are there a bunch of clearances and you have to get the okay from the provincial?
I don't think we went through the whole factory, but no. I mean, they're a public company. I think they're interested in
the exposure,
being well understood.
Yeah.
Which I think hints at why they enabled this. I think they had to send a car to this guy, the YouTuber.
Yeah.
And by the way, the president of Ford went over there about 6 months before I did, went on the same tour. So they let him go there. And he had an SU7 shipped to Michigan, and he drove it for several weeks. And he's talked about how incredible it is.